In case some of you were confused, I'm Bill Anderson, Ann's husband of over 62 years. And with me up front are my family. My daughter Maren, son-in-law Duke, daughter-in-law Dana, son Tom, grandson Max, and granddaughter Sarah, grandson Will, and granddaughter Kate. I might add that Will and Max are the sons of our daughter Maren, and Kate and Sarah are the daughters of our son Tom. Well, we've come together this afternoon not to mourn the passing of Ann Anderson, but to celebrate the life of Ann and to share in remembrance and thankfulness of Ann's memory. Ann spent a lot of time in this room at meetings of the Tennis Club, the Democratic Club, Study Symposium, Music Appreciation, Documentary Films, Cal Alumni Club, and Great Decisions discussion groups. In addition, she was here for private parties, including our own 60th wedding anniversary party in 2010, and memorial celebrations like this one. So it's appropriate, I think, that we gather here to remember her because she is really part of this place. I'd like to quote from parts of a secular celebration of life ceremony that resonates with me and hopefully will have some meaning for you. Our life is a circle, but unlike a circle, our life is finite and has an end. We are each born into our own life. We grow and mature. We age and grow old, and then we reach the end of our life. However, this is not truly the end of our life. The memory of us that we leave behind allows us to live on in others. Every one of us follows our own circle of life, down our own path as an individual. But as we do, our paths will inevitably cross with others. We're all here today because our individual circles of life have intersected Ann's circle of life. It's for this reason that we celebrate today and not mourn. Ann's life is not over. It continues on with us, just as the circle has no end. Please take a moment to remember Ann and those moments in time when Ann entered your circle of life. These moments are unique in that only you and Ann shared them, and these moments have joined Ann's life circle and your own forever. Take a minute. I'll let you think about it. Remembering those who we have loved and aren't with us any longer makes their memory within us stronger and helps us to not forget. We should not, however, live our own lives trying to hold on to the past. We should cherish the memories we have, but also realize that we have to live forward to make new memories. Your interactions and relationships with others are what form their memories of you, and this is the legacy that you leave behind. Your life is part of the story of Ann's life, just as your life will be part of the story of others' lives. Live your life without regret, without leaving things unsaid or undone, but most importantly, live your life. At this time, our family would like to share some images of Ann throughout her lifetime to give us a feeling and memory of how she looked as a child, grew, matured, and became the older active adult that most of us in this room remember. I wanted to point out that the older girl in those younger photographs is Ann's older sister, who was 5 years older, Mary Pat. Mary Pat McLean and her family are sitting in the front table down here. Her husband, Bob, her daughter, Ann, named after my Ann, and her sons, Don and Jim. And Mary Pat died just in January of last year, and Ann died in December. And yesterday, the two families were out on San Francisco Bay on one of the most beautiful days I've ever seen out there to scatter the ashes of both Mary Pat and Ann. Now it's time for some remembrances. And as the oldest surviving member of this part of the family, I get to go first. Bill's remembrances. My life's path crossed with Ann's about 64 years ago when I arranged a formal introduction at a party of my fraternity and her sorority. This was at Cal. I wanted to meet her because I'd often noticed her passing by on the street, and when she warmly greeted me whenever I was calling on another girl at her sorority house. Ann had a certain look that really attracted me, and she always had an open and friendly smile. We began dating some months later, and the rest is history. That history includes over 62 years of marriage, resulting in 2 wonderful children, 4 outstanding grandchildren, a delightful worldly son-in-law, and a bright, beautiful daughter-in-law. It also resulted in me having the honor and privilege of having Ann as my wife, lover, best friend, confidant, and loyal supporter through thick and thin. I learned a lot from Ann, especially about classical music and art. I opened her eyes and mine to a few things as well. We were very compatible and willing to compromise. We complemented each other in interests, knowledge, experience, capabilities, personalities. Ann had a memory that stored everything she ever learned, and she could recall it all when she needed. She bailed me out of many potentially embarrassing situations with a recall of names. She never forgot the name of anyone she met, however briefly. As an older person, some of that recall left her, but she never ceased to amaze me with her memory of people, places, things we did, authors and books read, musicians and musical performances, movies, plays, artists and their work, and on and on. Ann developed great passions that changed from time to time, sometimes so quickly that I was left behind in wonderment. A very trite, perhaps, but true example. Ann developed a great liking for dry vermouth as a before-dinner cocktail. Now, this was many years ago. And she persisted in liking dry vermouth. As a result, I stocked up on that. And one day, without any warning, her taste changed to gin, and she never touched dry vermouth again. I had bottles of dry vermouth for years. I didn't like it, no one else did either. By the way, that gin passion suddenly changed to vodka, and then later on to wine, and finally to total abstinence. Anne loved to travel and would read everything she could find about the history, people, cities, historic sites of the countries we planned to visit. She would make all the reservations and plan a detailed itinerary. We would walk for miles every day with a guidebook in hand and Anne confidently leading the way. She was our local tour guide. We would come home from our travels having lost weight because of all the walking we did. However, she was not a reliable map reader as we were driving around Europe and trying to find our way to the next point on our itinerary. As a driver, I would admit I would get a bit impatient after we had passed the same intersection for the third or fourth time, or ended up miles from where we intended to be. Of course, it was all my fault, I'm sure. Anne and I had many memorable adventures traveling throughout our lives together. As native Northern Californians, we lived together and with our children at many locations around the greater Bay Area, such as Berkeley, Oakland, Lafayette, San Anselmo, Kentfield, San Francisco, and finally Santa Rosa, as well as 2 locations in Maine, 3 in Connecticut, and 2 in Michigan. Our home here in Oakmont is our 16th address that we have occupied together. Now, with all of these moves, Anne always put down roots, joined the community, volunteered, made our friends, and made a comfortable home. Our final home here in Oakmont was perfect for our end years. We both got involved in the community, made many friends, many of whom are sitting right here today, and enjoyed our house and the Sonoma County lifestyle. Last year was certainly a bit stressful with the loss of Anne's older sister in early January, then our house fire on January 16th, being displaced for over 4 months while the house was rebuilt, being fortunate to be able to live at Oakmont Gardens and make new friends during that period, having to make the many decisions required for construction changes, selecting materials, fixtures, furnishings, colors, and the like. Also having to buy new clothes and deal with all the insurance paperwork. Once happily back in our newly rebuilt house at the end of May, Anne began a series of falls that were debilitating and finally led to her death the night of December 3rd, just a few minutes before her 84th birthday on December 4th. During her final months, daughter Marin flew out from her Boston area home several times to check on her mom. Son Tom became a frequent visitor from his Marin County home. Many of our Oakmont friends frequently dropped in to talk with Anne and let her know that she was not forgotten. We were helped by 2 caring, empathetic, energetic caregivers, Michelle Mills and Stephanie Nelson, both employed by We Care Home Assistants, and by the nurses, social worker, and home care people at Heartland Hospice. Anne was surrounded by people who truly cared for her and for her comfort. With me at Anne's bedside at home that final night to say our goodbyes were Marin, Duke, and Tom. And for the support of all of these caring people, I will always be extremely grateful. I'm also grateful that Anne lived long enough to experience musical performances at the Green Music Center. We were contributors to the construction fund over the years, and we often wondered if we would both live long enough to see it finished and be able to attend a Santa Rosa Symphony performance in that magnificent hall. Well, she and I were able to attend a couple of pre-opening musical performances and 3 concerts before her death. She died on the night of the December Monday concert, one that we would have normally attended. Anne was absolutely delighted with the looks and sound of the music hall and was so happy to be there. An accomplishment that I must mention and will always be grateful for is Anne's parenting of our 2 children. Because of my job responsibilities, I traveled and was away a lot during the formative years of Marin and Tom. Anne was often a single parent from Monday to Friday. Did a marvelous job of raising our children to value art, music, books, the joy of learning, and independence. A great bond developed between the 3 of them that lasted and even grew closer during her lifetime. Her values, as well as mine, are reflected in our children today. As you know, Anne had scoliosis, something you couldn't miss noticing in recent years. It was hardly noticeable during her young and maturing years, and she never let it interfere with her lifestyle after she took control of her life. As a girl, she was restricted from active play. As an adult, she embraced active play and became a decent and competitive tennis player, an active walker, hiker, camper, snorkeler, birder. In recent years, she was in constant pain from her collapsing skeleton, but she would not give up trying to lead a normal life. She never considered herself to be physically impaired. It was mind over matter. Anne's positive thinking made the difference, even as she developed other medical problems in later life. I'm lucky to have had Anne by my side as long as she lived. I came close to losing her several years ago when she almost drowned in Costa Rica, and later when she was mugged and thrown down subway steps in Spain, and then when she crashed the car into a light pole here in Oakmont in 2009. She defied fate, bounced back from these traumas, and continued an active life. Though from 2009 until the end, her joy of life was diminished. Anne was an intelligent, outgoing, optimistic, friendly, accomplished woman of many achievements, most of which are outlined in her obituary and in the memorial brochure, and certainly are too numerous to repeat now. After having Anne as a major part of my life for over 62 years, I certainly miss her presence, but will always have a treasury of memories about a memorable person to cherish. Maren will now say a few words.
I have a few stories to share about what it was like to live with my mother, and I hope that you'll see how extraordinary she was. When we first moved to Maine, when my father went to the S.C. Warren Paper Company, she was miserably homesick for California. They had no avocados, and it was cold, and there was snow on the ground. And at one point, she was lucky enough to find an artichoke in the grocery store. And the woman said at the cashier, "What are you going to do with that?" So that was our beginning together. She was very brave to have agreed to move to Maine. And food was very, very important to her. She later became a French chef. But I remember when we were little, when he was talking about being away all week, what we would do is have breakfast for dinner. And the three of us would sit around the kitchen table and eat eggs and pancakes. And we would talk. My mother treated us like we were her best friends. She told us everything about the world and life during those 5 days of the week. It was just the three of us. We were very tight. And after our dinner, she would play the guitar. She took up the folk guitar in the 60s. You saw that picture. And she taught children, and she was like Pete Seeger or something. So she taught us every folk song you can imagine. My children to this day hate hearing me sing, "What Shall We Do with the Drunken Sailor?" Besides music, she loved art. And one of the things you saw in the picture was she had this whole wall full of art. And she took Tom and me to the framer, and she taught us about medieval, Renaissance, and contemporary art. And she hung it all together. And from then on, we became these incredible art lovers because she made us participate in her love. She also was an amazing seamstress. She made practically all those clothes that you saw her in. She made me several prom dresses. And I don't know if you saw me in the fisherman knit sweater, but I woke up one morning when I was 12, and I was on my way to Lake Tahoe to go skiing, and she had stayed up all night finishing that sweater. I was so overcome that someone would stay up and do that for me, but it was also because she was a procrastinator. She was a night owl. She liked to work at night, and it was perfect, and I still have that sweater. In addition to that, she had this incredible brain that Dad was talking about. And at dinner, and when we were in high school, she made us sit at the dinner table and discuss current events or science or something that was in the New York Times. And if we didn't get it right, she jumped up, got the encyclopedia, and read us all the facts. Also, she was a huge political activist. And when she joined the Unitarian Church, she got involved in civil rights, and then she became involved in the anti-war movement. And we did the Peace March on Washington in 1969, where we were trying to get Richard Nixon to get out of the war. But the one I remember the most was in 1966. We walked across the Golden Gate Bridge with all these Marin County families, and my mother was wearing a little tweed skirt and a sweater because she wanted to look like middle-class people were against the war. And when we got to the Panhandle in the park, all the hippies were there, but here we were in our little knit, you know. She's the one who made me go to public policy school. She was the most informed. She was in the League of Women Voters. She knew everything about policy, and you all know what it's like to argue with my mother about policy. She knew her stuff. Later, back in California, I'm sure you probably know, she became an entrepreneur, and she was involved in energy conservation, and she mastered PG&E utility bills and got money back for all of her clients, huge amounts of money. And I have to say, for a woman who lost her car keys half the time, her mastery of this arcane utility billing was unbelievable. Also, when I was older, she took me to Europe, so I know what Dad's talking about. I'm sitting in Florence. I'm saying, you know, we have seen everything in Florence. Can we sit for like 20 minutes? Just, you know, an hour. I just need to sit. And she spent the whole time going, are you done? Are you finished? We have to go. She wanted to see the Fra Angelicos, and she wasn't going to. She had the guidebook out. She was planning our walk. Later, when I lived in Washington, D.C., and I was raising my children, we didn't really see each other very much. So the only way we communicated was through being in a little book club, and we would call each other about the books. And when she came to Maine, she taught my children dominoes and cards, and she corrected their manners, and she made sure their grammar was correct, and they're so much better for it. I look around this room and I see people here, I'm very grateful to say, who are from junior high and high school, who are my friends, who always said they wish my mother was their mother. And I have wondered why that was, and I think it's because she was tons of fun, she was really lively, and she trusted us to do the right thing. And that's pretty important for teenagers. She pushed me very hard. She made me do everything that I ever committed to, and she told me that she would always love me if I made a mistake and if I failed. And that made it possible for me to go out in this world and do things I never expected. When her back was plaguing her in her later years and she had all of these problems physically, she always said how lucky she'd been for a person with scoliosis to live this incredible life. And, you know, she'd get up every day and she'd go to dinner and she'd watch the NPR NewsHour and she'd come to all these Oakmont events, and every step she took was painful. So her bravery was extraordinary. So I just will miss my incredible mother, the most stimulating woman I've ever been around. Neruda said, to feel the love of people whom we love is a fire that feeds our life. My mother's fiery love made me what I am.
Tom will have a few words.
Thank you so much, everybody. All right. So I have some memories as well. I covered quite a bit of ground here. Thank you. You know, I know the music that was playing earlier was something that you might have noticed that she loved music, and so that particular piece she chose, and she had a list of pieces that she liked, and so we put that to the slides, and I hope you liked it. But I remember music in the house a lot as a kid. I did not play instruments, but she always had a piano in the house. The piano was kind of a feature in our living room, and she always had music in the seat in the piano seat. And there was, you know, boogie woogie music. There was, you know, jazz and other things. And she was very proficient at the piano. She was very good. And I had, you know, bought a piano for my daughters to learn. And you know, they learned. And I know Marin is still playing piano in her house. And so, you know, it's important that we have these traditions and continue on. I know that. You know, going back and thinking of some other memories, I know we talked about her scoliosis, and the other day my dad and I and Marin were looking at each other. We never thought of my mother as anybody that was disabled. You know, she was not. You know, she was very, very able to do anything she put her mind to. So I think that's important that as a kid growing up, we just didn't see her that way. She was just super capable, could do anything. I know in her medical problems towards the end, put a lot of strain on her, but she tried anything. And there's a picture of her skiing there. That was the one time she put skis on. But she tried. And my dad was telling me that she did go back to the lodge after that and enjoyed, I think, some quiet time. She went out and skied a couple of days. But I like skiing. Maren likes skiing, so she would do things like get up early in the morning, get us in the car, and drive us to ski resorts. And that was tricky back in Massachusetts and New York to drive across the state in the snowy and cold weather. She didn't like winter driving too much either. So there would be moments where she would throw your arm across you and like keep you from falling in the passenger seat. That stop quick move. And we would get to the ski area. We would go out from early morning till because we wanted to get our money's worth. We would she was a child of the Depression after all. We had to use our money wisely. So we would go out and ski all day, and she'd be in the lodge, and those were not comfortable lodges back then. So she'd be there knitting. She would be making us hats, and we would enjoy that ride home in the dark on icy roads once again. But as a driver, she taught me to drive. There were no accidents that I remember other than her backing out of the garage with the garage door down twice. And she always blamed that one on the fact that she could see out the window. So she still the door was open. She goes, some man invented that. That was an expression she would have. And then there was always that driving down the road where there would be this gasp. It'd be like, and we would like, what? Then look at the beautiful dogwood tree. Or, there's a bird by the side of the road, and we would all be like in panic, but she managed to get us there. And so she was always a safe driver. She would always tell us, if you have an accident, it'll be with you the rest of your life. And I know she had an accident here in Oakmont, and it did sort of change her life. After that, she had a hard time recovering from that. We really thought we lost her at that moment. And so, we didn't. She had a couple more years, but I always tell my kids, if you have an accident, it will be with you the rest of your life. So you be careful. And then there were times when, she was a big supporter of us too. Maren and I we joined this racket club up at San Rafael. That racket club had a swimming pool, and she would take tennis lessons, and she learned tennis pretty well. She was a competitive player, and Maren and I would go to the swimming pool, and we swam competitively for a couple of years. She would take us to meets, and she would be there rooting us on. And my poor sister, was being as big as she was, always had to swim in the bigger group, and I was the one going in the pool. We got ribbons and things, and she really supported us. A lot of meets, and that's something she taught me to, support your family with being there as a rooting section, and I do that with my girls today. So I love her for that. And the art and books that we mentioned, that was in the house all the time. We had books everywhere. We had art books and the art lessons. She taught us how to appreciate art, going to museums. And I, in school, actually studied art history. And, she was one of those parents that didn't tell me, why don't you just try something a little more practical, Tom? That the art history was okay with her. And, it stuck with me today. I love you for that, Mom. Because, she did want us to be our own person and to be happy doing what we were doing. Another great memory I have, too, was, we used to sit in the living room and watch TV when my dad was away. And we'd watch KQED and we'd watch Julia Child cooking. And I love cooking today because I feel very comfortable in the kitchen. I enjoyed it. My mom was a really good cook, and she was very, very comfortable trying new things. She did, occasionally make things like liver and onions. And I don't know what, she didn't make me eat that, but I don't know what it is with you people from the Depression, why you like the liver and onions. I don't get it. Yeah. So the cooking was really, fabulous. She did really well in the kitchen, and I try to pass that on to my girls. She was adventurous in so many areas. We'd go camping in the summertime, and she'd have a little portable cook stove, and we had to clean up, but she cooked. She taught us all these songs like "Will You Wear Blue, Jenny Jenkins?" We remember that one. And back in Connecticut, when she taught guitar, to really help pay for my sister's college and my college, she would guitar lessons, and she was this kind of. People thought of us as this family that came from California. They thought we had flour in our hair, when we came. And in the 70s, it was, we were these exotic, California kids. And she fit in really, really well in the social scene in Westport. They loved her open mind, her caring, and people were smart there. She met a lot of Jewish families there too, and so she used to always say that I should have been Jewish. Because, I fit with these people so well. They think like, don't get me wrong, it was a wonderful kinship she had with so many friends. And the politics there, she did these campaigns oftentimes where there would be campaign workers that would come to the house and they would even stay with us, and so she took politics very seriously, she didn't really run for office, but she would always support good candidates. She was a doer, and she was not an observer. She would have these PTA president, the League of Women Voter president. She was even a delegate, I think, for the Democratic Party, and she voted for president as a delegate. So she was wonderful in all those regards, as far as caring for things that you all care about. Really, that she understood that politics was, look after the little guy, and that we wanted politicians that were, doves and not hawks. And she was a real advocate for, for equality. So as I grow older, as my kids mature, I'm reminded daily of the importance of a strong mother. My wife has, got many of the same qualities. My mom, very smart. Together as a family, and our children are growing more confident. They are loving. They're worldly individuals. They're not afraid to say, I love you, and we embrace that strong mother that we had. So I really feel that she was a terrific mother to me, great grandmother to my children, and so I'll sort of end on this. There was a quote I read that. Death ends a life, not a relationship. That was Jack Lemmon, by the way. So thank you so much.
Tom's wife, Dana, my daughter-in-law, has something to say.
Hello, everyone. I'm very honored to be here today as Ann's daughter-in-law and wife of Tom and mother of two of her grandchildren. I didn't have a chance to be part of all the early memories that we're sharing here today, but for nearly 20 years, Ann was a warm and loving friend to me, and she mentored me in many ways, as I often struggled to try to figure out how to be a parent to twin daughters. Kate and Sarah are a little bit shy about being up here in front of all of you, so I thought I'd like to try to share just a few of the memories that we all have as Ann, as a grandmother in our family. Grandmothers they're very special to children. They're seen as wise, and their wisdom is never questioned. You just don't challenge your grandmother. A grandmother is able to impart lessons to children that just go totally unheard when parents attempt to deliver those same lessons. It could be lessons as profound as kindness and tolerance to others, or the value of a lifelong friend, which I know many of you in this room can attest to. And it can be lessons as small and as minor as where the fork is properly placed on the table. I think we're still working on that one, girls. And why it's never a good idea. Clean your ears with Q-tips. And probably most of us in the room disregarded their grandmother on that one. But even the lessons that seem minor add up in the end to a very important piece of wisdom. If you can take care of the small details in your life, you'll have a better chance of dealing with the larger issues when they come along. And that's the lesson that I think Anne did a wonderful job of teaching my daughters as a grandmother. Grandmothers are not only wise, they hold a very special place in the hearts of the grandchildren. Pancakes, angel food, cake, and lemon squares always tasted just a little bit better when they were made by Grandma. And I think we all know it wasn't the chemistry of the recipe, it was the love that Anne always put into everything that she made for our family, for the girls. Anne, Grandma, also introduced Kate and Sarah to music, which was an extremely important contribution because Tom and I are completely lacking in any musical talent. Tom mentioned the song, Jenny Jenkins. I just want to read one verse. Don't be frightened, I'm not going to sing, because it's a very strong memory I have of Anne. When Kate and Sarah were young, she would sing the song for hours with them. Some of you might know it. It goes like this. Will you wear white, oh my dear, oh my dear? Will you wear white, Jenny Jenkins? No, I won't wear white, for the color's too bright. I'll buy me a foldy-roly, tilde-tolly, seek-a-double, used to cause a roll to find me. Roll, Jenny Jenkins, roll. Nonsense rhyming. I don't know how people come up with this, but it goes on and on and on with colors. No, I won't wear green because I'll look like a bean. No, I won't wear red because it'll make me think of Fred. And she would sit on the couch for hours with Kate and Sarah and her guitar, and she could just sing that and that nonsense rhyme that I can hardly even read. And they would just shriek with glee. The one thing I think we never could find a rhyme for is, no, I won't wear orange, or, so if anybody can think of one that rhymes with orange. And then there were the books, lots of books. The first books that Anne introduced the girls to when they were still very young, Where the Wild Things Are, Go Dog Go, George Goes to Town, Harold's Purple Crayon, just way, way too many to mention. But, you know, parents are often so busy, we just don't really have the ability to be in the moment with our children and to sit there and just enjoy a book. But Grandma, with her wisdom, she appreciated those small moments and cherished them. And she had the love and patience to sit there and start what I think with Kate and Sarah will be a lifelong appreciation of a good story. Well, these are some of the things that I remember about Anne and her family. But as I wrote these thoughts down one morning in our dining room, I thought maybe I should ask them what they remember. So I did. If you could carry one memory with you, what is it that you remember most about Anne, your grandmother? And here's what they said. The pancakes. Independently, I asked them, and both of them said, the pancakes. Okay, I said, well, there must be more to it than that. I mean, after all, I eat pancakes at IHOP. Well, okay, they were delicious, Mom. They were the best. I mean, they were better than yours. I was like, okay, I can take that. In fact, I would have to agree with that. But what else? Because we're just basically talking about food here. Well, Grandma always got up super early in the morning. This would be when they were spending the night with her. In her robe and her big warm slippers, before we were even awake. And she'd go into the kitchen and make them. We never had to ask her. Okay, good. Now we're getting somewhere. Now we're not just talking about food. But what else? Is there more? Yeah, well, she always knew exactly what we wanted and what would make us happy. And there you have it. I think that's it. Those ingredients of wisdom and love that only grandmother has. And she was a very special grandmother, and she was a very, very special friend of mine.
Son-in-law Duke would like to say something.
Aaron and I have been married for, how's this? So I came late, like Dana. Mary and I have been married a little over 20 years. And Marion wondered if I would remember being interviewed for my job by Ann. And in some ways, that was sort of an ongoing process. But I remember, I actually don't remember the lunch particularly well. I'm sure I've repressed the... But I do remember being in Blue Hill, Maine. Maren and I had bought a house very early in our marriage, and Bill and Ann came to see us, and we were looking at art galleries there, and we got back to the car, and it was locked with my keys in it. So I say, how could this happen? This is rural Maine, small town Maine. We never lock the car. I always leave my keys in the car. Oh, she said, I don't remember the words exactly, but along the lines of, that's ridiculous. You have to lock your car. People, you never would leave your keys in the car. And it sort of got pretty testy. Got quite testy, as I recall. But it was the only argument that I remember us ever having. And in fact, as year in, year out, year in, year out, year in, year out, I felt so welcome in this family, just as Dan has said. We lived in the East all those years, and so we didn't have the wonderful benefit that Dana has described of being close. But Bill and Ann made a point of coming to see us, and Ann and Maren stayed very close. And I used to talk to people about my in-laws and how fortunate I was in my brother-in-law, in my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law, particularly, and of course, son-in-law, mother-in-law is always a complex relationship, but she was wonderful. And we shared a lot of interests. As you know, because you know her, and as Bill and Tom and Maren, Dana all said, she knew a lot of stuff. She knew a lot of stuff about a lot of things. And it was fascinating to me because I often felt like I knew a lot of stuff, but it was nothing. And whatever it was, we would talk about art, we would talk about music, we would talk about birds, we would talk about, I didn't talk much about tennis because that was not a world that I knew as much. We talk about food, we talk about politics a lot, and often what I would find is thereafter, either in an envelope in the old analog days or by email to me or to Maren would come a lot of information. In magazine subscriptions, and of course you had to master it because in the next conversation you had to be able to keep up. You had to do your part, you know. As I say, it was almost like a continuous interview in certain ways. But you had wonderful taste. I remember specifically we were talking about the Rock Quintet, which is what was playing behind, and I had not paid enough attention to it, and she made me listen to it. And over the years, I got CD after CD, and we, you know, she educated me as best she could, although we could never get together on Mahler, whom she loved and I could never embrace. But that said, I do think I can't do justice to her in the way that Dana did, but I can share the spirit that Dana shared, which is what a pleasure it was for me, and what a pleasure I'm sure Dana, to be embraced into this magnificent family, and to be embraced by this magnificent woman, and to be continuously made to feel a part of something that, in Dana's and my case both, having grown up in the East, was just in some ways an interesting and different but magnificent, cultivated, intelligent world. And so I wanted to remember that, remember her, and remember the pleasure that I always took in the relationship. And remember that as a mother-in-law, she always gave me a sense that I was generally measuring up to her wonderful, strong, beautiful, independent daughter that she had raised so beautifully and so well. So it's a privilege to be here.
Anybody else at the head table? I know you're probably all anxious for the next the next major move, which is for food and beverage. But if any of you in the audience would like to say anything, where your circle of life may have crossed hands, this would be the time to do it. Would anybody like to say anything? You're Kay Jenkins.
I did not know Ann in a family situation. I knew her in a casual contacts to the tennis club, the symposium, and the grocery store sometimes. The Ann that I heard described today was not the Ann I knew. The Ann I knew was addicted. Every time I saw her, I made a point of walking up, chatting with her, and walking away feeling much better for having done it. I've talked to other people who knew her casually like that, and they agreed. When they saw Ann, they had to get that dose of good feelings and self-confidence. Somehow she did it. So you were very, in fact, lucky to get that on a regular basis.
That was great. Thank you, Kay. Sue Millar is making her way toward the podium.
I didn't really get to know Ann until I started going to the World Council meetings when I had more World Affairs Council meetings. And Ann was always there. Even though you were president, I'm sure she would have been there anyway from what I'm hearing here. But I would like to speak on behalf of all of us who play pétanque. Ann decided at one point that tennis wasn't going to be her game anymore. So she came down to the pétanque courts and she started playing, and she became very good very rapidly. But I could tell that if she missed a shot or could have done it better, you could see that she was very disappointed in herself, and she was determined to do better the next end. And then after she had her auto accident, she still came down to the pétanque courts. She came down with her oxygen tank, at first being held by her hand, but later, I think, Bill, you helped her devise a carrier for it. And she came down and she played pétanque with us as long as she could, very determined, still, even with the oxygen tank on her back, very disappointed in herself if she missed and could have done better. I don't think Ann could have done better at anything. She seems to have been well educated, self-educated maybe about art and music, and her interests were so varied. You all got a good education too.
Tina Lewis.
We have bird feeders in our backyard, and am I on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And every time there was a bird that we'd never seen before, Kay would run to the bird books, and she's a big bird lover. We couldn't find it, so I would take a picture, JPEG it to Ann, and said, what is this? And she always knew. And then she would tell me some big thing about to go do this and that and walk here and there to see some others, and I would just hit delete because I didn't know. So it was just wonderful. She knew everything about birds.
It'll be really short.
Here comes my niece Ann McLean.
So I'm very honored. I'm named after her. But I have a passion for dogs, and to this day, I always tell my dog to lie down. And every time I say that, I think of Ann, because she corrected me. And all the dog owners out there who say lay down to their dog, and their dog doesn't do it, it's because they're saying it incorrectly. Bad grammar.
Well, that is so true. I've been corrected many times.
I'm Mary Coolidge, and I had the great privilege of knowing Anne since I met Mary
As a little girl.
in 1960-something. And she was wonderful and warm and loving and smart. And when she didn't approve of something, I thought she had the most wonderful way of not saying anything. I just feel when Tom was talking about the pancakes and Dana was, I remember the waffles at Temple Vista and the lasagna and how much I love to go there and how I feel lucky because I knew her and she loved me. Sorry. And I'm happy to be here and, God, you know, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful woman.
I just have one short thing to say. The very first time I was introduced to Anne, and first impressions, we all have first impressions of people, I said to my husband Michael, "This is a lady."
Maybe we should end on that note. Well, once again, on behalf of our family, I want to thank you all for coming. It's just, Anne would be so pleased and so honored to see you all here. And I'm honored also by the help that we got this evening when our daughter-in-law Dana put together the PowerPoint presentation on Anne's life. And the AV technician extraordinaire, Tony Lukes, over here. Is the one who put and we have in the back of the room Dutch Licklider and Gary Pickering, who are videotaping this presentation. Thank you very much. It's probably long past time to break for something to drink and to eat. And things are served on the side table, and we're going to let you make your way over there at your own leisure. And there's plenty to drink in the back room, so probably that's the place to go right now. Thanks again. We'll be talking and visiting with you.